Kansas City Chiefs are champions of Super Bowl 54.
These guys are hungry for more. They are eager to win another one. They're not satisfied with that one title. They want more. They want to build a dynasty here.
Sidearm pass intercepted. It's Dan Sorensen. A pick six. Corner pattern near side. Kelsey reaches up and makes the grab.
Every conversation since the parade has been run it back and do it again.
The Chiefs are fresh off the bye, ready to kick off the home stretch. And first up are the Vegas Raiders, the only team to beat the Chiefs in the last calendar year, setting up an epic clash on Sunday Night Football. We are 1 hour from kickoff. You've waited 2 weeks for this very moment. It's finally here. It is time for football in Chiefs Kingdom. Let's do this. My name is Matt McMullen, joined this week by Mitch Holthus, voice of the Chiefs. And Mitch, the Chiefs were so good after the bye last year. They won their 8 final games, including Super Bowl 54. We'll have a similar result here this season, and it all starts here tonight.
You know, it was interesting. It was last year this week, after the Chiefs had gone to Mexico City, that everything started to go to another level. The 9 straight wins leading to Super Bowl 54 and then carrying over into this year. You hope for the same result. You're playing a team that you want to exact revenge upon. But more than that, it's a key game for the division. If the Chiefs can win this game, they're 3 up with 6 to go. That's the biggest storyline of this game. Absolutely. And we had it last year. We were so fortunate to have that late November bye just like this year. It's really the perfect time to have that bye week because you can get ready for that home stretch. And we know how good Coach Reid is after the bye week. It's the most quoted stat in Chiefs Kingdom, but he keeps winning after the bye, so we have to keep saying it. 18-3 after the bye for Coach Reid in his career. Then also in rematch games. So in games where Coach Reid has seen them already once in the season and he sees them again. Since 2015, he's 17-3. So Coach Reid's a future Pro Football Hall of Famer. We all know that, one of the best in the business. And when he either gets a chance to see you early in the season or he has extra time to prepare, he's really tough to beat. And who do you play rematch games against? Your division opponents. That really goes back to his time in Philadelphia. He was able to dominate basically in the NFC East for much of that time of the 14 years in Philadelphia. And so how do you do that? You're great in rematches. You're better in rematches. And he's so good after buys because he does not stop. He just continues to think about ways to improve in all 3 phases, and that's what Coach does and does well. We're so fortunate to have him leading us here, of course, in what is 8th season now, trying to get another Super Bowl trophy here in Kansas City. Won't be easy, though. This team in the Raiders is pretty good. We know that. We've seen them already once this season back in Week 5. Good team with some playmakers. It'll be a tough one. We'll see how we can do in this one. We'll break it down over the next half hour or so. But, Mitch, first, let's take a quick look at the inactives for tonight's game. The 2 that we knew coming into this one, Sammy Watkins, Mitchell Schwartz, we knew they wouldn't play in this one here tonight, so no surprises there. There is plenty of good news, though, when you're looking at this inactives list. First of all, McCole Hardman, Eric Fisher, 2 guys that were on the COVID list earlier in the week. They are both active for this one here tonight, so that's really great news for that. Then also some injury news. Alex Okafor and L'Jarius Sneed, both activated off injured reserve on Saturday. You know, Okafor, having him back is big for this pass rush, but Sneed, that's big news in my opinion. He was so good in the first 3 weeks of the season, has interceptions in each of his first 2 games as a pro. Was pretty good against the Ravens too, but of course got hurt. Haven't seen him since then. He has the speed to keep up with these Vegas receivers. And let's go to Okafor. I think as much or more, his pass rush ability is his ability to hold the edge. He's very much like Frank Clark. He takes holding the edge seriously, and you must do that in this game tonight against the Raiders because I do think they're going to emphasize Josh Jacobs even more than they did here in October. Now, in that game in October, too, we saw those receivers of the Raiders really come to life. But enter L'Jarius Sneed. Did not play in that game. He got hurt in the Ravens game in Week 3. At the very least, he gives you an athletic, bigger nickel to play as Spags does that rotation with the DBs. Getting Sneed back is a big deal. Absolutely. And now looking at Vegas, there were several guys on that COVID list on their defense earlier this week. Most of those guys are playing in this game, but they do have some big losses we should talk about. One on defense I want to mention is Cleveland Farrell, and we'll talk about him a bit later on, but he had 9 pressures in that Week 5 matchup earlier this season. I mean, he was a wrecking ball in the middle of that Raiders defense. He's not playing in this one, so that's huge news. This defense looks totally different without him out there. We'll talk about him a bit later. The guy I want to ask you about, Mitch, is Trent Brown at right tackle, one of the best right tackles in all of football. Yep. He hasn't played since that Week 5 matchup, but the Chiefs haven't seen this Raiders team without Trent Brown. He's a really good player, both setting up Josh Jacobs in the running game and then also blocking for Derek Carr. Derek Carr was sacked just once in that game. Losing Trent Brown's a big deal. It is, and go back to their run game because he is outstanding as a run blocker as well, Trent Brown at right tackle. Every day in the NFL, you got to look not only at the injury list, but at the COVID-19 list. The Raiders have had no less than 21 transactions involving players on that COVID list. They have had $1.2 million in fines because of COVID-19. Trent Brown being out's a big deal. He's only played a couple of games. One was right out here, and he was a huge factor in that game against the Chiefs in October. But moreover, if you take it back to his time in New England, he's 19-10 in his last 29 games in which he plays. It's more impactful, I think, in the run game to have him out for the Raiders as much as he's a good pass protector. Again, the Raiders want to run the ball today. They would love to have what Carolina had out here, 8-minute drive and get a touchdown.
And you win games in the trenches. We always say that. This Raiders team is fundamentally different without Farrell and Browns. Those are two big losses right there. A few other guys that won't be playing on this one. Corey Littleton at linebacker for the Raiders. He's played 99.6% of their defensive snaps, so that's a big loss not having him out there. Then also LaMarcus Joyner. He will not be out there in that secondary. A bit of good news for the Raiders. They will have Colton Miller, their left tackle. He missed last week's game with an ankle injury, but he's active in this one, so they do have some good news on the injury front. So as we get closer to kickoff here, you will see some live looks out at Allegiant Stadium, and those warm-up live looks are brought to you by Orworo. Orworo is the official heated apparel partner of the Kansas City Chiefs. Heated socks, vests, jackets, gloves, all that good stuff. They have it all. Check them out at orworowear.com. That's O-R-O-R-O wear.com. All right, Mitch, so looking at these Raiders, the first guy I want to ask you about is Derek Carr at quarterback. And the guy's having a career year, 16 touchdowns, just 2 interceptions on the season, owns the top passer rating of his career so far. And he was good against the Chiefs back in Week 5, 347 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. What's impressed you about Carr this season as he's seemingly taken his game to a whole new level?
Well, I think, too, he's got a better surrounding cast and what they've been able to draft and put to his roster, but also the fact that there is more continuity with him and his coaching staff. But now he's had a coordinator consistently. But the stat that's not on the board that we see here, to me, is the big stat for Carr this year, in that he has 8 completions of 40 yards or more. Only Russell Wilson has more, and only 2 guys have more in Russell Wilson and also Aaron Rodgers. So the only 2 that have more 40-yard completions. Of his 8 completions, Matt, 4 were out here in that game against Kansas City. 4. 72 yards to Ruggs, 46 to Ruggs, 59 to Aguilar, 43 to Hunter Renfrow. 40 yards, not 20 or 30, 40. And he hit him 4 times with it. You've got to defend the run and get them off the field tonight, but you also have to respect their deep threat. It's there and it's real.
We always talk about how teams are trying to catch the Chiefs, and one of the ways some teams are trying to do that is to match the Chiefs' speed. And yeah, in that Week 5 matchup, we saw the Raiders trying to do that, and they did it with success. And they have weapons around him, as you mentioned. I mean, look at Henry Ruggs. Runs a 4.2 40. He can absolutely fly, blazing speed. He's only played in 7 games this season, but in 4 of those games, he has at least 1 catch of over 20 yards. So huge big play threat, and that 72-yarder that you mentioned back in Week 5. Then Nelson Aguilar, he's averaging over 20 yards a catch this year, has 5 touchdowns on the season, also had a big one against the Chiefs, as you mentioned. Then also Darren Waller, an absolute vacuum at tight end. Derek Carr loves throwing his way. He leads his team in grabs by 14 catches, so he's going to get his targets throughout the game. We know that. Always have to know where he is. We saw these guys back in Week 5. We saw it happen. They have playmakers everywhere.
Well, and you mentioned Darren Waller, but the stat that jumps off this page when you look at the Raiders' offense is look at third down conversions. They're first in the league at 50.43%. That means they stay on the field. I'll take it even further. They're third in the league in 10-play drives. So this team is built to play the Chiefs. Mike Mayock and John Gruden have done a great job of adding to this roster, but it's not an arrogant statement. They've done it to beat the Chiefs. They've said it in the offseason. We're chasing the Chiefs, and they have got an offense built to do just that. They have enough capability to hit the deep ball. We just mentioned that. But their big thing, they can run the ball and stay on the field. And with Waller, they've got a third down threat to keep the chains moving.
And with those big plays, they had, within a span of 9 plays, they had 3 touchdowns in the second quarter in that Week 5 matchup, just out of nowhere, 21 points. That was half their scoring output. So big plays really are what propelled this team to a win back in Week 5 against the Chiefs. You can't allow those to happen here in this one. And you mentioned Josh Jacobs. As much as we talk about the big plays, John Gruden still wants to play football like it's 1998, and he has the running back to do it in Josh Jacobs. He didn't do a ton against the Chiefs back in Week 5, 77 rushing yards on 23 carries. Did have 2 touchdowns, though, and they're just going to keep giving him the ball over and over again. In the past 3 games, he's really been gaining steam, averaging over 4.5 yards per carry and 2 110-yard performances in there. He'll get the ball a lot tonight.
He will. He gets 3.8 per carry. which is the least of the top 9 running backs in the league. But that doesn't deter him. He's not a guy that's going to bust a 50-yard run. Devontae Booker did. He had a career-high 43-yarder in that game out here in October. But Jacobs keeps the chains moving, 7, 6, 5. Think about Le'Veon Bell when he was a Steeler and not a Chief. That's what Josh Jacobs is. He's an absolute toothache for you to try to get them off the field.
They have some playmakers, we know that, but we also know a lot about this Chiefs defense, and if we know anything about them, they took that loss personally. They'll be ready in this one. Can't wait to see what they can do against these Raiders. And for more on this defense, I caught up with a guy that knows a thing or two about defense, and Derek Johnson, for his thoughts on this Chiefs defense and also his favorite memories from this Raiders rivalry. All right, we're joined now by Chiefs franchise legend Derek Johnson. And DJ, I want to ask you about this matchup. But first, you had so many battles against the Raiders over the years. I'm just curious, what are some of your favorite memories playing against these Raiders?
You know what? That's just a rich tradition, a big-time rivalry playing against the Raiders all the time. We always called it Raider Week. Always when I was in Kansas City, and still today, it's still a big rivalry. And I tell you what, going down to Oakland was we loved it, just because you go in there and you try to silence the fans. I mean, everybody, they're throwing batteries at you. They're calling you names and everything. But it's one of those things where if you can go down there in that hostile environment and handle business, man, I got some legendary moments that I cherish for the rest of my life playing against the Raiders. So this is a big week for the Chiefs.
Absolutely. And you were such a huge part of this defense for so long, all-time leading tackler, obviously, and so many big moments against the Raiders. Like you said, they're in Las Vegas now, but it's still the Raiders, so really excited about this one. So when you're looking at the Chiefs defense now this year, they've really established themselves as one of the better defenses in the league. What's impressed you about this defense this season?
Well, stopping the pass. I think they're really onto something. Coach Spags is really dialing up the blitzes when it comes to third downs and second and longs. He's a coach that's very aggressive at times when it comes to getting off the field, and he's doing a great job with the team. My hat's off to him. It's one of those things where you see a defense out there running around, and I'm kind of I'm almost jealous. I'm like, man, I wish I was out there with those guys. They're doing a great job. They can stop the run better, but I tell you what, being on a team with Pat Mahomes, you're going to get a lot of passes thrown at you, just because most of the time we're going to be up in the game and we're going to score a lot of points. And the Chiefs are holding up right now when it comes to passing defense, and they look really, really good.
I bet you could still play, man, if you want to come back.
I wish, man. I wish. I may have to talk to Andy about that. Maybe something like that.
So you mentioned how good this defense has been playing. Allowed more than 20 points only twice this year. One of those times was to these Raiders, though. I'm just curious, what do they need to do in this one to make sure the Raiders don't go for a big game again in this one?
I would say too many explosive plays. I mean, it was too many explosive plays. I mean, 50-yard touchdown, a 60-yard touchdown. Those right there kill you as a defense. And it was kind of the last game, it was a tale of two halves. First half, they kind of scored on each other. It was kind of even. And then second half, the Raiders kind of outplayed the Chiefs a little bit in the second half. And that's unlike the Chiefs. So that's not characteristic of the Chiefs. And I just know after that game, they kept rolling after that. So I tell you what, I know the Chiefs are licking their chops to go down to Vegas and play against these Raiders, who are a hot team right now. They haven't won much the last decade, I should say, but they're off to a good start this year, and we'll see how they hold up against the Chiefs this week.
Should be a lot of fun. This rivalry is better when both teams are good. Can't wait to see how it plays out on Sunday Night Football. DJ, awesome stuff, man. Really appreciate your time. All right, great stuff there from DJ. And happy birthday to him. This is earlier in the week. I didn't realize it was his birthday here on Sunday, but happy birthday to Derek Johnson, one of the greatest players in franchise history. All right, Mitch, so speaking of defense, I want to ask you about this Raiders defense now. And they're 19th in the league in terms of scoring defense. You might look at that and say, well, they're not very good. But if you watch the tape, look at the playmakers they have, they're better than their numbers indicate.
No question, and what they've got are players at all three levels, and that's what's impressive about the Raiders. By the way, DJ, my all-time favorite linebacker, don't be deceived by this page. I think this is a deceptive look. You're saying, well, there's no way the Raiders could hold up defensively to the Chiefs. Well, they did in the game at Arrowhead Stadium. Now, they trailed 14-3 and 21-10. But what happened was the Chiefs had a chance to seize the game at the beginning of the third quarter, and there were 2 possessions where the Chiefs could have taken the game back, and they could not move the ball against the Raiders. Here's what the Raiders do that's very similar to the Chiefs. They make plays at key times. They've got some outstanding athletes. Jonathan Abram comes to mind. I think he's the new Honey Badger in the AFC. He's a Honey Badger in the making because he's a player that's a safety, but he really plays like a corner. Their linebackers, when they got Nick Kwiatkowski from the Bears, it was designed to play the Chiefs because they have somebody that's athletic that can roam the middle of the defense, and they've got a good defensive front. Max Crosby's got a high energy there, but there's athletes all over the field for the Raiders. Don't be fooled by their stats. They're better than that.
Now, of course, one piece is missing from that, the one big piece in Clelin Ferrell, and I mentioned him earlier, 9 pressures back in Week 5, and for context, that was tied for the 6th most by a player in a single game this season. So a lot of pressure, and he didn't have any quarterback hits. He didn't have a sack in that game. So if you look at the box score, maybe you're just casually watching the game, you might not realize how disruptive he was, but he was a wrecker in the middle of that defense. Not having him is a big deal.
Went back and watched the video this week, and he and Abram, to me, jumped off the video of wrecking the Chiefs' plans. And the fact that he can play both the run and the pass, but he's athletic. After that game, I think I said, maybe even on a rewind show, it's the first time that we saw the Khalil Mack trade get manifested just because the Raiders were able to stockpile first and second round picks, and they did it on both sides of the ball. But looking at the defense, when you look at guys like Abram and Clelin Ferrell in particular, those guys come to mind as the manifestation of that Khalil Mack trade. But again, the Raiders' COVID-19 problems, Clelin Ferrell will not play in this game tonight, and that is a very big thing.
Big loss for them. Now, a couple of guys that will be creating problems for that Raiders defense here tonight are Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, both having great seasons. We'll start with Kelce. He ranks 6th in the NFL right now in receiving yards. And get this, Mitch, he's one of only 2 players in the NFL to have at least 750 receiving yards in each of the last 7 seasons.
Wow.
Incredible consistency from him. He joins DeAndre Hopkins in that. Only Julio Jones, Mike Evans, and Jarvis Landry can join them on that list this season. We know he's the best tight end in football. We say it every week, but he's also one of the best pass catchers overall in the NFL.
It is the most underrated story, I think, this year in the National Football League, and I don't think I'm overstating that. I tweeted out earlier this week, Matt, when you look, he has 12 20-plus catches this year, Travis Kelce. On those 12 catches, he is averaging 28 yards a catch. That is better than Julio Jones and better than Stephon Diggs, who you should have on your fantasy team. Those guys are wide receivers. They are not tight ends. Of that 20-plus catch group of 7 catchers or more, he is the only tight end on that list, and that includes 40 players. Nobody's talking about him enough. He's having the year of his life, and his life's been pretty good to this point. And he's having his best year as a blocker. This has been just an incredible year for Travis Kelce in every way, shape, or form.
Yeah, he is absolutely awesome, and joining him in being awesome is Tyreek Hill, also having a great season, 650 receiving yards and 9 touchdowns through the air for Tyreek Hill. He scored in all but 1 game this season, and he's tied for the NFL lead with 9 touchdown grabs. He's found the end zone twice in back-to-back games now. And Mitch, also get this, nobody has more multi-receiving touchdown games than Tyreek Hill since 2017. He's gotten better and better every single year, and we're seeing that this season.
His route running is what is underrated. His strength is underrated. We know how fast he is, but he has gone to just another step up. Do not forget, he had a 58-yard touchdown against the Raiders called back because of a penalty that would have opened up that game and might have changed the game. So he becomes a threat not only as a deep threat, he now becomes an intermediate threat because of his ability to run routes and every route that the Chiefs have in their iPad.
These 2 guys combined for 186 yards through the air back in Week 5, and that doesn't include that 58-yarder that was called back, so keep your eye on both of them here in this one. Now, the guy getting them the ball, we haven't mentioned him yet, Patrick Mahomes. He's probably the MVP of the NFL right now, and for more on Mahomes, I caught up with Keyshawn Johnson of ESPN earlier this week. All right, I'm joined now by Keyshawn Johnson of ESPN. And Keyshawn, I want to ask you about Patrick Mahomes. You played in this league a long time. You know what good football looks like. I'm just curious, first of all, how much would you have loved to play with Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback when you were playing in the league?
I might still be playing. I mean, that's a guy that I would have loved to have played with. You know, watching Patrick Mahomes now for the last 3 years is just some of the things he's been able to do. You know, a guy like that able to create the magic that he's been able to create in such a short period of time. he's only going to get better, which is scary. 20-something, or what is it? What does he have? 16 touchdowns or whatever it is, 1 interception. I mean, with the numbers aside, you just got to look at his ability and his play and some of the things that he's been able to do. I don't care about the left-hand throw. I care about some of the other things. Just, in the moment that you think that the Chiefs are out of it, all of a sudden he just comes roaring back flawless. And I don't know where that comes from. I know that Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy has done a tremendous job at coaching him up. And I'd like to see where Patrick Mahomes is going to be 5 years from now. I really would like to see that. I think I know where he's going to be. I think he's going to be doing the same things with a couple more rings on his hands. But, you still got to play the games.
Yeah, certainly hope you're right about that. And 25 touchdowns this year, only 1 interception.
25-1. 25-1. It's CARR with the 16.
Well, the numbers are crazy, normalized. You look at what he did back in 2018, 50 touchdowns, 5,000 yards, MVP season. How have you seen him grow in the time since then, what he's doing now?
Well, I think, one, he's a little more careful with the football. He's not as reckless. Not that he was reckless before, because he's not a pick machine, but some of those throws that he would take chances on, I don't necessarily see him take those chances anymore. 2 years ago in the Monday night game against the Rams, he was, dealing and willing and throwing that thing all over the place. I don't see it like that anymore. It almost like he was forcing balls, where now everything is precise, precision, where it's supposed to go. I mean, terrific athlete, ex-baseball player. He's really something special.
Absolutely. And we saw him against the Raiders back in week 5. The Chiefs lost that game. They're only lost in the last calendar year, but he still played pretty well. He had 340 passing yards, 3 total touchdowns. What's he need to do in this game to make sure the Chiefs don't lose against the Raiders here in week 11?
Do the same thing he did in week 5. The same exact thing. Their defense just needs to play better. Spagnuolo needs to control the over-the-top deep balls that went to Nelson Aguilar, that went to Henry Ruggs. Control Waller. Make sure you shut down the run and Jacobs at the end of the game in the second half. That's how you beat the Raiders.
Absolutely. Hoping the Chiefs can do that here on Sunday Night Football, be a big win. Hoping to take a big step toward our 5th straight division title. Keyshawn Johnson, awesome stuff, man. Thank you so much for your time. All right, great stuff there from Keyshawn Johnson. And, Mitch, I think with a lot of these older guys, that has to be the sentiment where, man, if Patrick Mahomes was my quarterback when I was playing, I might still be playing right now. It just shows how lucky we are to have him.
Here's what Keyshawn would have to learn if he was playing with Patrick, and that is, if I'm not the primary receiver on the route, keep running. You remember at training camp when McCole Hardman, keep running, he's yelling at him. Keyshawn, if you're not the number one and you play with Patrick, it doesn't matter. Everybody's the number one. Run your routes, Keyshawn. I don't know. He would have to learn to play his game. He was a good receiver, don't get me wrong, but everybody's got to be on their toes playing with Patrick.
Well, and so much talent on this team. Look at the numbers here. 25 touchdowns, 1 interception this year for Patrick Mahomes. Of course, that 1 interception was against these Raiders, but if he throws 2 more touchdowns, it'll be the greatest start to a season in NFL history in terms of touchdown passes against an interception, and really impressive stuff from him. He had that MVP season back in 2018. It's like, where does he go from here? We're seeing it right now.
These numbers are ridiculous. I mean, you look at his passer rating, and historically against the Raiders, 13 touchdowns and 2 picks. You mentioned the one by Jeff Heath here. Travis Kelce's taking the blame for that. I went back and looked at it, and I said, yeah, maybe Kelce screwed him up on that, but he's just playing at such a high level, and it's not just putting up stats. We've talked about it all season long, that it really started last year, and he's going to have to do it tonight. The Raiders are going to throw him a ton of looks. We mentioned this Raiders defense can affect the game at all 3 levels. Good enough pass rush. The Chiefs also have to run the ball tonight against 4-man fronts. Just enough, because the Raiders are going to show them a lot of 4-man fronts. But they're also going to show Patrick a ton of different looks on the back end, man, zone, combo, and he's been doing a great job of reading those and being effective at the second level. He's starting to hit spots now better, like a pitcher throwing strikes.
Should be a great matchup. Can't wait to see how it plays out here on Sunday Night Football. All right, Mitch, before we wrap up here tonight, let's take a quick look around the NFL and some good games here today. Look at Titans and Ravens earlier today. This game went to overtime. Derrick Henry walks it off with a 29-yard touchdown run. Ravens are in 3rd place now in their division. They're in some trouble.
Who else watching the show tonight, raise your hands if you had this, that you had the Browns would be ahead of the Ravens after Week 11? The Ravens now have to look at themselves in a mirror. They have a short week. They play the Steelers. They are looking at extension. The AFC is rich. Going into this week, there was 9 of the 16 teams had a record of 6-3 or more. If you falter just a bit, losing that game today felt like losing 2 games to them because they had that game won, because they had a chance to win it in overtime. They won the coin toss. They had a 3-and-out and took a deadly 9-yard sack Lamar Jackson did on 2nd down. All of a sudden, that gave them a field position, and the Titans were able to go in and get that. So give Vrabel credit, but that's a game the Ravens are going to be, looking at themselves going, wait a minute, they're scrambling now. They're 3rd in their division, not leading it.
Of course, the Titans getting a victory in that one. Speaking of the AFC South, great one between the Packers and Colts right now. Live look, I believe the Packers just tied it, so 31-31 going to overtime. Really good matchup there. Regardless of what happens, this race in the AFC South between the Colts and the Titans is a good one.
Again, it goes back to how rich the AFC is this year, and the fact that those 2 teams are going to be playoff teams. I know you're probably thinking the way I'm thinking and the way the rest of the Chiefs Kingdom is thinking, because when I watched that Ravens game today against the Titans, I go, is that a first-round opponent for the Chiefs? And when you look at the Colts, every time they play, is that a first-round opponent for the Chiefs? Whether the Chiefs have the 1 seed or the 2 seed, keep in mind, they would play the 4-5 winner. That 5 seed in the AFC, I know it'd be a wild card team and not a non-division winner, but whoever's the 5 seed in the AFC this year will be a very dangerous team.
Absolutely. Looking forward to Monday Night Football. It's Rams at Buccaneers. Big-time matchup there, and we'll see these Buccaneers here in just a week.
Talented team, but they're up and down. Tom Brady, what Tom Brady will we get? I mean, he looked as bad against the Saints as he's ever looked in his career, or as bad as he looked here in 2014 against the Chiefs when he got pulled from the game. But then he came back and was on fire. But this is a big game, too, for the Buccaneers because they want to sit there and try to match the Saints in the division. Short week for the Bucs, kind of a short week for the Chiefs because the Chiefs will not get home tonight till the wee early hours of the morning. Those West Coast trips, when you're playing Monday night or Sunday night football, you go right back into town about 4 or 5 in the morning. You walk off the plane and start the next week. So there's no real advantage there for the Chiefs with the Bucs having a short week Monday night game.
Should be a lot of fun next week. You have Tom Brady, perhaps the greatest quarterback of all time, and then Patrick Mahomes, who is off to the greatest start for any quarterback in NFL history. So can't wait for that one. But first, it's Raider Week. We take care of this one here tonight. And Mitch, as we close out our show here tonight, any final thoughts on Chiefs and Raiders?
Just try to take care of business. My play-by-play, the start of the play-by-play here in just a few minutes on the Chiefs Radio Network will be chasing. In the National Football League, you chase. You're always chasing. You're either chasing a leader or you're chasing excellence. For 50 years, the Steelers have chased excellence. For 20 years, the Patriots have chased excellence. The Chiefs are chasing excellence this year. They win tonight. They have a 3-game lead with 6 games to go and a chance to win a division for a 5th straight year. That would tie the all-time AFC West record. That's my final thought. It's on tonight, baby. If the Raiders win, it's game on in the division. If the Chiefs win, it's the continued strive for excellence.
I thought I was fired up before. Now I'm even more fired
Let's
up, man.
go, man.
Let's do this. It is Raider Week. I cannot wait to see what the Chiefs can do out here tonight on Sunday Night Football. One final thing before we go. Black Friday is coming up. Stop by the Chiefs Pro Shop Monday through Wednesday. Get the whole store at 25% off. And if you spend $50 on merchandise, you get a free Super Bowl 54 football. So we waited 50 years for these footballs. You get a free one if you spend $50 in the team store.
I feel like Kelsey in a throwback.
You're right. It's pretty cool.
I got the starter jacket on. I feel like Kelsey.
And then, of course, on Friday, the whole store is 40% off. Some exclusions apply. Keep your eye on Chiefs social media for that. But stop by the Chiefs Pro Shop. A gift for yourself, a gift for some family in Chiefs Kingdom. You do not want to miss out on these deals. All right, for Mitch Holthus, I'm Matt McMullen. Thank you so much for watching us tonight, everybody. Enjoy the game. We'll see you afterwards.